What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and on today's RealTime Fantasy Sports show, I'm going to give you 5 of my favorite waiver wire pickups for Week 13 of the fantasy football season. As you know, it gets tougher to navigate that waiver wire as the season progresses, but I think there's some good options out there this week, some guys that could help the rest of the way, mainly because of injury, which is usually the case at this time of the year, but we have some options for you out there, and it starts with Devin Neal of the New Orleans Saints. He's owned on 19.4% of leagues on our site, but Neal could end up being the starting back for the Saints the rest of the season. Alvin Kamara is dealing with a sprained knee. He left that game early last week. Neal played pretty well once he got on the field. He had 11 touches in that game, including 5 receptions. So that really helps his fantasy floor. He has at least 3 catches, 3 of 4 games. So he's getting some work in the passing game. Even if he doesn't post great numbers as a running back, if he keeps getting that work as a receiver, that's going to really help his fantasy floor. And I think he's going to help fantasy teams because he has that 3-down back ability. So I think Neal is definitely worth grabbing in all formats. He could end up being a solid player the rest of the way. Maybe use him as a flex play for your fantasy lineups. My next pickup for this week is Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The tight end is owned on 21.6% of leagues on our site. He finally returned to the lineup last week after missing several weeks because of a hip injury, and he looked great. He had 5 catches for 93 yards in that game. And don't forget, he has double-digit fantasy points 3 of the 6 games he has played this year. So he's been pretty consistent, and now he, in my opinion, he's a low-end number 1 tight end the rest of the way. Definitely is a good spot starter for fantasy teams. If you're looking for a spark at tight end, he's out there in a lot of leagues. I'd go grab him. My next pickup for this week is John Metchie of the New York Jets. He's owned on just 2.4% of leagues on our site, so he's out there in nearly every league. Jets are all sort of beat up at receiver, and Metchie's been the guy that's been stepping up, been the most consistent option for the Jets. He has found the end zone 2 straight games, has 9 catches during that span as well. I think he could be an intriguing fantasy play down the stretch with some decent matchups, especially if Tyrod Taylor continues to start. He's a better thrower in that Jets offense. He plays the Falcons, Dolphins, Jaguars, and Saints in the coming weeks. So I think Metchie could have a couple decent games during that stretch, and he could be adding to your fantasy lineup. My next pickup for this week is another receiver. It's Mitchell Tinsley of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's owned on just 0.4% of leagues on our site. So there's only a handful of owners on RealTime Fantasy Sports that own Tinsley, but he could end up getting a little more playing time the coming weeks. T. Higgins went down hard last week. I would not expect him to play this week. They have that Thursday Thanksgiving Day game, short turnaround for him. So I think Tinsley's going to start, and he played 74% of the snaps last week when Jamar Chase was out because of his suspension, and he played pretty well. 2 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown. The Bengals remain thin at receiver, and I think Tinsley's going to get some work in the coming weeks in this pass-heavy offense, so he could be another guy worth grabbing for your lineup. My last waiver wire pickup for Week 13 is Dylan Samson of the Cleveland Browns. He's owned on 28.9% of leagues on our site, so the most owned player on this list. But the good news for me when it comes to Samson is the Browns were very run-heavy with Shadur Sanders as their quarterback last week. They ran a lot of Wildcat, and Samson got the most work since the first week of the season. He played 37% of the snaps compared to 49% for starter Quinshon Judkins. So he was out there almost as much as the starter. Samson had 9 touches for 82 total yards and a touchdown. As mentioned, the Browns were very run heavy this past week, and they won the game. So you can expect that to maybe be a formula going forward. And I think Samson could end up being a guy that gets 7 to 10 touches per game the rest of the way. All right, those are 5 of my favorite waiver wire pickups for Week 13 of the fantasy football season. Good luck navigating those waiver wires this week. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.